Check, check. Can everyone in the chat hear me? Okay, check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Oh yeah. Thank you, Bradley. For everyone watching the replay, you can go ahead and skip this countdown timer. I'm just doing some quick housekeeping, checking in my guest. What's up, Kevin? Can you hear me?
Hey, how are you?
Good. Do you hear any echo or anything like that?
No, nothing at all. I hear you.
Nice. All right, cool. Nice mic.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's the same one Joe Rogan has, which I like. Wait, do you have the same one? Oh, you have the same one. Yeah. I see the numbers over your face.
Yeah.
Countdown numbers, but I didn't see the mic. I like this. I like this mic a lot.
Oh no, yeah, I love it. All right, we got 4 minutes. So what I'm gonna do is go over some news real quick, and then, yep.
Give me 1 second. Okay. Cool. I like your background. It's good.
Thank you. Oh, that's my dog.
I'm sorry. You were saying you were gonna. How are you gonna get started?
Oh, no, I'm going to go ahead and get started with the news. The format's like I introduce everything, get the news down in about 8 to 10 minutes, and then I go ahead and introduce you.
Great.
Cool.
So how has the podcast been going?
I see a bunch of you out there in the chat. Go ahead and say hi. Introduce yourself to the audience. We got 1 minute and 20 seconds left.
Hey, time to get it started, no delay, let's work. Wanna see you be an SEO expert. Paul Andre De Vera, steady dropping knowledge. Over 15 years in the game, so he knows all about it. Master the art of SEO, you will be amazed. Time to get your brand off page to on page. Dropping knowledge, legendary for sure. Whether you're just getting started or self-employed entrepreneur. Yeah, let's go. Subscribe to the SEO video show. Hey.
Hey, what's up? Episode number 11. Thank you for coming out today. I'm hitting a milestone. I'm at over 600 subscribers now. I'm road to 1,000. So if I make you smile today, make you laugh, if you find it insightful, please subscribe to the channel and like and share this video. I want to make sure my name is Paul Andre De Vera, aka Dre, out in the enterprise SEO industry, and I try to provide an entertaining way for you to digest SEO content, Google News, and the favorite part of my show is when I get to introduce my guest, and today's guest is Kevin Rowe, and we'll go into introducing him later on, but let's get on with the show. Well, actually, let me make sure I can say what's up to everyone out in the chat. Maddox, Elizabeth, Eleanor, Victor, Tim, Ernesto, Tom, Bradley, Shar, Zen, Michael, Joe Priest, what's up? I was just going to mention you today, Joe. I want to say what's up to the Super Secret SEO Skype group. It's a great bunch of people, and you know what? There's only one way to get in there. You have to check out this one tool called Topical Relevance. Go to topicalrelevance.com. It's an LSI keyword generator on steroids. I swear to God, it's free 99. You can't miss out. Just sign up and go in there, and you'll have a secret link to the SEO secrets, the Super Secret SEO Skype group. So check that out. Thank you, Joe, for coming out. Big shout outs to everyone at the SI group, IMG. And before I go on, I want to make sure, I want to just say hi to everyone and thank you again for coming. Let's get on with the show.
This is Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. Why did Tiger Woods start studying SEO? To get his #1 ranking back.
Gotta love the dad jokes, right? If you guys don't know who that is, if you're an old school WWF fan, that's Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. I was a big wrestling fan back in the days, and this show is based like on a 90s type of theme. So go ahead and check him out somewhere on their YouTube if you want to see what he does. I want to make sure I say I wanted to cover some topics from other live SEO shows this week. I mean, there was some great stuff covered on the SEO Fight Club. There's some technical SEO triage. Over at Hasta La Vista Boss channel, Clint Butler was on there doing some schema tutorials. You got to check it out. And today, I want to make sure you know that Google actually put out a couple blog posts today, this week. One is on how Google delivers reliable information in search, and they go on to talk about the 3 elements to their approach to information quality. Another blog post is where they're sharing what they learned from the Virtual Webmaster Unconference. I actually signed up for that, and I got in, but I didn't get in. So they had some troubles, some stuff to work out over there, some bugs. And I want to make sure you can go ahead and check it out and read it on their blog over there. Let's see here. We have Googlebot will soon speak HTTP/2 starting in November 2020. Googlebot will start crawling some sites over H2 for short. It's an upgraded, more modern version of the product protocol. They mentioned on the very, very bottom part of the blog, and they said like, hey, will this be a ranking factor? And they said no. This is something to test, guys. We can't always believe what they say. So let's go ahead and check out something from the Google Webmasters channel. This one is from our buddy John Bueller.
Does a .jobs domain improve the ranking in Google specifically for jobs websites? This is a really common question that comes up for the new top-level domains. In short, no. You don't get a special bonus from having a keyword like that in your top-level domain. Anecdotally, you can see that by searching naturally for anything that interests you. I'd venture a guess that the top results don't have those keywords as a domain ending. Often, it's not even in the URL at all. That's by design. Just because a website has a keyword in its domain name doesn't mean that it's more relevant than others for that keyword. In short, you don't need to put keywords in the domain name. From a practical point of view, it's worth also keeping in mind that businesses evolve over time, and moving domains is hard. So it often makes sense to pick a domain name that you can use for the long run, and not necessarily one that just matches what you're offering today. For example, if you focus on making awesome blue widgets and build your website on bestbluewidgets.com, what do you do when you start offering red widgets? So instead of spending too much time on the domain name or top-level domain, focus instead on building up a site that you can continue to use for the long run.
Couple things here. I agree and disagree. The top-level domains is something with a keyword, and actually the TLD, like from my website, it's seo.video. I kind of believe that. I'm going to do some tests myself, and I believe that is not like a ranking factor. One can't help you rank. However, I am a firm believer, and I've in other groups I'm part of, we see that exact match domains or domains within the actual domain, keywords within the actual domain, do help boost some rankings. I know there was a contest back maybe 4 years ago by Wix, and they had a contest on SEO Hero. And the winner was actually a .tech domain out of everyone else. So back then, I actually tested this domain. I registered a bunch of 99-cent domains on Namecheap, and I just registered it, put some lorem ipsum, random keyword, and then put it in Search Console. And lo and behold, the .tech domain was above all the other domains. I can't remember which other ones were ranking, but I mean, that was a test a long time ago. If you want to see a more updated version of TLDs, Bill Hartzer actually put out a study a few months ago. So you should check it out and see what he found. I'll put the link in the description. And then let's go ahead and go on to our next piece of news, which is kind of a PSA.
When I was in high school, this was a theater I came to quite often.
Well, your friends, they came from out of town. It was a new kind of neighborhood.
The support we've had over the last 2 months has been amazing.
I have a soft spot for local places.
It's not just a work environment. Everyone here is family.
Gonna go ahead and support him, give him a haircut, and leave a big tip.
If we focus on our local communities, we can find a way to get through this together.
Thank you. If you are ready to open your heart and your home, check us out.
Get out and about and support our local community.
We thought for sure that we were done, and this town said not today.
Okay, Google made an announcement on their actual Google YouTube and put this video out there and said that near me searches are actually the highest than ever. That's something that you guys how are you guys doing that? How are you guys like optimizing for near me? I mean, this actually was brought to my attention on on IMG, the group that I'm actually in. Someone brought it up about how to do some near me searches. And I wanted to share like how I actually do some near me searches. I have a client who actually is in every major metropolitan city. And what we do is we just actually go ahead and write blogs on let's say, best restaurants near the city, best coffee shops near city and states. I mean, we kind of do this with all the blogs, and I can see that these are ranking for near me searches, like in a tool like Ahrefs, because you can see the near me searches and then those actually landing pages showing up for each one of those. So that's something you could check out. It's if you want to learn how to do some near me searches, let's talk. I'm curious on how you guys do it. And speaking of near me, there was a great summit that went on this week. It was a local search summit by White Spark. And I was going to take some clips here, but there was just so much great content that I couldn't really figure out like what to grab. I mean, you could go ahead and go there. I'll put the link in the description. It's some great content from a lot of people that have actually been guests here on the show and some future guests that will be coming up. And speaking of this White Spark, we actually had my tweet of the week is by Cyrus Shepard. He actually tweeted something out of this conference, which is that the 3 top local ranking factors, which was like the primary GMB category, keywords in the GMB title, and proximity of the address. So go ahead and check that out. I swear to God that summit was pretty off the chain. Some great content out there. The last part of my news before I get to my guest is a content marketing tip, an SEO content tip that was featured on CaliCube. The editor of the Search Engine Journal, I believe, mentioned something that was really interesting. It was a nice nugget. Let's go ahead and play this for you.
I was looking through our content audit. I noticed we had about 6 articles on content audits. So they're basically all competing with each other, and none of them were ranking on page 1. So, one of the things we did, I think maybe in 2018 or 2019, was just come up with a single post and had someone write it. And we published it. 301 redirected all the old posts to the new post, and it now ranks on page 1, and it actually gets some traffic every month.
So you hear that? You actually can find some content that's not ranking at all. Just take them all down, redirect it to one piece of content, and voila. I mean, I have to try that myself, but I have never actually thought of that. So I think that's a really nice nugget. Try it out, tell me how it works, and see if it works for you. But now to my favorite part of the show. Let's go over here. Kevin is the founder of PureLink, a contextual link building solution. He is focused on disrupting the SEO industry and building solutions for the large problems that digital marketing faces when driving results through search. Kevin advocates the SEO industry that needs to build management principles based on the UVCA ecosystem to be more predictable. He's an experienced entrepreneur, speaker, and his thought leadership has been featured on Fast Company, Forbes, Search Engine Journal, Search Engine Land, and The Atlantic. Kevin has worked with some of the hottest Silicon Valley startups as well as Fortune 100 companies. He built 2 SEO companies generating over $1 million in revenue each. Please welcome Kevin, the triathlete, Rowe. Kevin, how's it going? How's it going, my man?
Great. That was a great introduction.
Oh man, all my guests deserves those introductions. I mean, you've done a lot for the community. You're a thought leader. I've read so much of your blog posts on Search Engine Journal. I mean, I'm curious, what is the UVCA ecosystem?
So it's actually popular in military leadership and training. So the general idea is it's an acronym. So U is uncertainty, complexity, volatility, and ambiguity. So for example, in SEO, I'd say it is the discipline and the practice of SEO is, I think we can all agree, we're uncertain about what the changes are going to happen in Google's algorithm tomorrow, right? It's extremely complex. Now, it used to be there's 200 ranking factors all weighted differently depending on which keyword category you're looking in, right? So it's very complex. Volatility, the amount Google, the sheer volume of updates every month to the Google's algorithm, even if they don't, it's somewhat claimed to be around 40 to 50, 30, 40, 50, whatever, whichever numbers you're using. So it's an extremely volatile industry. And then the last is ambiguity. And that, for me, is the hardest one, I think, when you're in SEO. And ambiguity is like when you get from John Mueller, like the Google spam, the link scheme guidelines, for example. They're extremely ambiguous. There's a lot of ambiguity in how they describe what you should or shouldn't be doing. Even John Mueller, the Google representative, his answers, when you ask him questions about what's going to work, what doesn't work for the link building, extremely ambiguous. There's a lot of ambiguity into it. So there's a certain way I believe you can manage and lead your SEO programs. You can grow companies and build programs, and it has to be based on those principles. You have to there's a certain way of managing and leading a company or leading a program or building a program. And how you do it differs based on your perspective and your view on or what like an engineering problem is a lot easier than an SEO problem to solve, right? An engineering problem, it's certain, the direction, you get a certain type of metal that, it's a physical problem. In SEO, it's not clear. The solution to the problems are not clear. And you've asked 10 SEOs the same question, you're going to get 10 different answers of what's the right,
Yeah, I think that's what makes SEO pretty fun, right? I mean, this is something that we are all trying to figure out, and disambiguating that is something that's really cool. I mean, okay, you made over $1 million each for each of your companies that you created. I mean, that's so awesome. But before becoming a millionaire, tell us how did you get into search?
So. I actually, after college, I went to South America. I was living in Chile, and I went down there with a biologist from Cornell University, and I was doing field research, like studying bugs, pollinating flowers. And so after I actually got robbed in South America, I was broke, I had no money, and I had nowhere to go, right? So I ended up hitching a ride back to the United States, to New York. And at the time, it was 2000, maybe 8, 9-ish. I was sitting, I was basically staying in my parents' house, and I just finished up college. I didn't know what to focus on. So I started the first course. So I started figuring out what I really wanted to work on. And SEO, I knew it was an extremely fast-growing industry. I knew some people that were doing it at the time. I didn't know exactly how fast the industry was growing. But I did know I needed to learn something. So I downloaded the Web CEO SEO training course. They have, like, back in the day, it was a pretty deep technical training course. At least it was a good introduction. I started learning SEO, and then I was actually doing free SEO work for some of the people I knew. So I'd actually just go out there and ask somebody, hey, would you want me to do SEO for free on your website? After that, I got my first job maybe a year later at an agency in New York. I was doing a little bit more than SEO, PPC, and project management at the time. But I just tweeted a lot about SEO. I got on Twitter. I started following a lot of SEOs, and it just landed me my first job because I just started engaging in that community.
I mean, would you say that's how you got, like, even into the conferences and speaking, and how'd you develop this thought leadership within the SEO industry?
So that's a really good question. So I started out in Forbes and Fast Company a couple of years ago, and so I really wanted to get out and get published. And at the time, it was just a goal to get published. I wanted to get more my thoughts out there. So I started with Forbes and Fast Company. And then from there, as I started sponsoring events, I started meeting more editors, and that's how I got into Search Engine Journal, and Search Engine Land as well. So just meeting the editors at these events, and at first it was more simple ideas in SEO, and now I'm specifically right now my content's really focused on, or it's getting focused towards solving specific problems and communicating certain ideas, especially around the ambiguity and I'd say the lack of transparency on Google, the issues, the issues with in the link building space right now is one of my real passion areas, meaning a lot of people don't really understand link building very well and have a lot of judgments about what's right, what's wrong, using, even the word black hat or white hat, which I don't believe is a valid term anymore. These are the types of things. So, despite the reason why I got into it, now it's evolved into, I want to really communicate and make sure people hear the message, the message I'm trying to convey, which is, one, it's a UVCA concept, how to manage in the SEO space. And then also, really the how we should be looking at link building and SEO in the future. And the way we handle SEO in general, I think as an industry, is not how we should be handling it. The types of programs, the implementation, the accountability. So right now, my big focus, that's not why I got into writing for these publications, but now I'm leveraging that platform to better communicate what I think is the real solution to those problems.
Perfect segue to PureLink. I'm curious, if this is just a fun question. Let's say you were talking about white hat, black hat, and someone comes up to you is like, hey, if working with you, am I just buying links? Isn't that bad in Google's eyes? What would you tell them?
I've had people say that a number of times. So
okay.
Technically, I've had some people really strict who say link building should be 100% natural. Then I've had people on the way other spectrum saying, I don't care how we get links. You can pay for them, pay the publishers, whatever. So there's a huge spectrum. And now I've had people, basically ask, does your link building violate Google's link scheme guidelines or Google's quality rater guidelines? If you want to really, if you look at Google's quality rater guidelines as a method for evaluating site quality. So typically what I say is, first off, if you look at Google's link scheme guidelines, which I know very deeply, what they say is, they do have some things that aren't as ambiguous. Like they basically say, hey, you shouldn't be paying a publisher for a link. But they also say things like the intent. They use the word intent a lot. So if your intent of the link is to improve ranking and not to enhance the user's experience, you are in violation of Google's link scheme guidelines. That's what they claim is. We PureLink as a company, does not build links for the intent of just improving ranking. So I think that's where you get away from violating the link scheme guidelines, if you want to say violating, and doing link building a link building program that has an impact. Now the second component to this is we need to be focusing on link building for and SEO in general, and what's going to help our clients or our companies drive business results from the search engines. Google's link scheme guidelines, you can violate, and you should, if you think there's going to help your business. We shouldn't be following Google's link scheme guidelines for the sole purposes it's Google's link scheme guidelines. Their intent is, their objectives and their goals are contradict, actually, and I think many times hurt your goals, right? So if your goal is you just want to get your content ranked in the search engines, get as much relevant traffic as possible, and then I think Google's goals, is not that. They don't care if your site ranks in the search engines. They just care if it's easier for them to index and find your content and categorize it properly. So I don't think the Google link scheme guidelines do anything to really support, SEOs or the SEO goal of driving new business and traffic, driving business from the search engines. Lastly, there was a Google, I gave a presentation a couple of weeks ago with Search Engine Land, and there's 3 different areas you can get information about SEO, right? So you can get it from Google's links, Google's guidelines, right? You can get it from the Google Quality Rater guidelines, the link scheme report, or any of the Google Webmaster information. And then you can get it from like Google representatives like John Mueller, for example. I still think that their perspective, and if you've noticed, John Mueller actually got SEMrush to rip down their link building marketplace. I don't know if you saw that. It was a huge to-do on Twitter. It was rough, but that was something that could have worked, right? So a great marketplace where you can go in and you can get your links placed on certain sites, or content distributed to certain sites, which Google claimed this is something that would get you penalized. Yet you see these marketplaces out there that actually have a very positive impact, and make it easier for you to acquire links and have links that have a very positive impact on your ranking or your website authority. So my whole perspective on this, on link building is, I don't use the black hat, white hat analogy anymore. And number 2, we don't follow Google's link scheme guidelines to the T, because there is no way to do that. But we do use them as guiding posts to understand how we should be doing link building. So we build more advanced scoring systems at PureLink. So like we have a Pure Grade score that helps us understand what we should and shouldn't be linking to. But what we should and shouldn't be getting links from, shouldn't be guided by Google's link scheme guidelines, John Mueller's feedback, or even the Google Quality Rater guidelines. Again, another part of this is there was a senior Google engineer, I don't remember his exact name, he was quoted saying all the Google link scheme guidelines and the Google quality related guidelines aren't necessarily how the algorithm recognizes and applies this information to the ranking factors. It's how they would like it to be. So I don't want to build links that how Google would like me to build links. I want to build links that will react to how Google search engine is weighting and qualifying links now. And so that's how that's the whole approach behind PureLink: scale, and then building links that are actually going to have an impact. And we just ignore whether, what Google's saying in terms of what's a good link and a bad link, because they don't give you any good information.
Yeah, guys, are you listening out there? Some knowledge bombs just dropped there. I mean, like he said, we're talking to a guy who's built a business around building links and the way he does it, and not necessarily following those guidelines because they're just what they would like to see and not what's actually part of the algorithm. Thank you for that. I mean, okay, well, you talked about the Pure Grade score. I'm curious, what is the one thing of your Pure Grade score to find the quality? Like, what's your score kind of based off? Maybe the top 3 things of that you look into to develop that Pure Grade score.
So yeah, there's actually about 6 different categories. Think about the Pure Grade source. So Google Quality Rater guidelines, they actually have a scoring system in there, and we use that in part when we ideate. We were ideating the score. So the score looks at, there's metrics like Moz's score, the DA. There's metrics like Ahrefs domain rating or URL rating score. There's a spam score from Moz. None of those actually help you identify whether a site is quality or not. Quality, quote unquote. So the score is intended to solve that problem, meaning, is this site going to have an impact on our ranking? So the variables are, we actually somebody manually reviews the content on the site, meaning you read through the content, identify if the content is, say, made for SEO. Is it intent for the user, or is it intended for SEOs or for improving ranking, right? Because I think that's something that algorithmically Google can figure out for the most part. And if you look at enough sites, like some of our team members have reviewed thousands upon thousands of sites, you start to see patterns. And I know Google's algorithm can pick up on those patterns. And then we also look at the author page. When we go after links, we want to find sites that never say buy, do follow links. If that text exists on their site, that means they're selling links. Google can understand they're selling links. Doesn't matter how good the content is. I think Google's going to devalue the entire site. So any site that mentions on the About Us page or the Advertise page, buy, do follow links here, that's just a very low score. That actually doesn't even, that's a score of 0 immediately. And then there's also the author. So, my director of SEO for PureLink, his big push on quality is there a person? Can we find a person behind this blog? Do they have a social profile? Do they exist? Now, Google's quality rater guidelines, they even suggest that this is a part of understanding the reputation of the blog. You got to find third-party resources that talk about it. And I believe that in link building, it's similar. And algorithmically, I think that Google can kind of understand that, so they can to some degree track down a user or a blogger, excuse me. So I think we have about 40 other factors, but those are the key ones. I would hope anybody reviewing a blog would probably try to would want to look at those.
Yeah, that's some great tips for people that's at least trying to validate some good backlinks. You actually have a relationship with over 60,000 bloggers. I mean, how do you even manage that? Do you talk to each one of them? How what's your pickup line? How do you meet them?
So as far as the relationships, so it's a standard outreach process. We started probably 3 years ago. It took two plus years to build it out. And so I have a product team. The product team's sole job is to go out and find third-party bloggers and build relationships with them. So obviously it takes scale. You have to have a scale of operations in order to do that successfully. A lot of it was based on value propositions. So like a lot of bloggers actually don't know how to find all the broken links on their site. So we would just produce automatic free reports for them and send them reports, and then start to build a relationship with them that way. Obviously this doesn't reflect, like, I contribute to Search Engine Journal, Search Engine Land. Like, I don't inject links from any of our clients or anything in my personal, blog, blogging or my guest posting that I personally do. So none of those are listed anywhere, in our database. But on top of the free crawl report you provide to the bloggers, sometimes you have to sponsor the blog. So some blogs we've probably sponsored once or twice. So now we have an in with those guys. And then the key now, after they've added to our database, we still have a probably 2-3% response rate on cold outreach when we're building up the sites to add to our database. But after we add it to our database, we actually have about a 90% response rate.
Got it. Okay. Speaking of your personal blogs and other networks and stuff like that, and say like the Search Engine Journal, your most popular blog got over 240,000 reads. It was just released, probably your latest one, and it's about 20 places you should be sharing content. I mean, of those 20 places, which one you would think it would be really good to make sure we really pay attention to, or maybe it's 3 of them. Which of those 20 places that we should be sharing content you recommend that we should always make sure we're on?
Let's see here. I'm actually just bringing up that list right now.
Okay.
So I tried to. So when I wrote that, I actually tried to avoid too many of the most popular ones. I know some of them seem silly, but like YouTube, I listed on there. To get into more niche relevant ones, Medium is actually, I think, a place that adds a lot of value. I mean, you have an audience. It actually gets indexed and ranks pretty well, the Medium articles, which was surprising to me. I think the LinkedIn articles are completely underrated. Now, you're not going to get a lot of SEO juice, quote unquote, from that, but I think LinkedIn, Medium are definitely two areas I would look at. So the LinkedIn's, you actually have to write the article for LinkedIn. So I think those are good. And to be honest, I put in email there, but I actually think your email marketing, your email list is by far one of the best places for you to distribute content. You need to manage that list. You need to take care of it. But I think your email list is probably one of the most valuable places to distribute your content, so that you have a direct audience, they're captive. As long as you maintain that relationship with them, I think it's probably the most powerful. You can also direct people where you want them to go as well. So like you can actually generate real results and real business results from email marketing, as opposed to if you create a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Short-term direct results, that is. So I think I would claim those three the most interesting and impactful.
Yeah, you mentioned email list. I know in the enterprise world, like a marketing automation tool like Marketo, like you can actually get those emails are sometimes stored on their back end, and you can actually they come pulled up on results. I mean, I'm thinking like, okay, wow, this could be actually some great way to get some backlinks that people don't know about. So that's interesting how you mentioned email. There was one thing on that list that I actually want to ask about, because you said Reddit, and I've tried posting on Reddit. It's you also mentioned like how it's it's hard. Like you get called out and stuff like that. I've gotten called out. And what are some tips on posting on Reddit? I mean, I would love to get more of my stuff on Reddit. Like, what do you do on Reddit to get your stuff to stick?
So my theory here on any sort of community, if you're going to be posting in a community, it's got to be authentic, right? So it's got to be helpful. What you're talking about, like Reddit, what happens is if you post your own content in a promotional way, the Reddits are relentless about that, right? So they're going to, it's going to be bad. But I think that if you're injecting, let's say you're getting into a conversation that's already existing, I wouldn't just plop a link inside of an article, right, or inside of a post. And what I would do is I would make sure you work on building up your authority and your trust inside the communities first before you start to plop your own content. It's going to take some time. It's going to take investment. And just like any great marketing program, it's going to take time and investment before you actually start to see you can post things and they won't get ripped down, or the community won't come after you for it. But and it has to be extremely, extremely niche relevant. You got to be talking, the content can't be just feel like it's shoehorned into the conversation. And what I like to do is if there's a bigger conversation to be had on a topic and you're in a Reddit thread and it's just very quick, Reddit's good for, short topics and ideas being discussed, right? But if there's something you need to go really deep, to do a deep dive into, I think, a long form article would make sense to include in that conversation. Some people disagree. No matter what you say, if it's content that you produce and you publish on there, they're going to rip it down. But I think the best way, if you want to produce your own content, is to do that. Second, building relationships with some of the Redditors, right? So people that are on there and convincing them to do it, and that means going outside of Reddit, and building a relationship there, and then maybe pick some top Redditors, and then start to build a relationship outside. You can go, you follow them on Twitter if you can find them on Twitter. Maybe even ask them to be on your podcast. If you do have a podcast, I think right now a lot of people are generating their own podcasts. Things like that. Anything you can do to build that relationship and demonstrate that you're actually authentic.
All right, guys, another knowledge bomb right there. Did you hear that? It's a common theme within our link building topic here, our relationships. Relationships between other Redditors, relationships with other bloggers, relationships with just other SEOs out there to further talk about, share content and build that backlinking. So I'm coming close to time here, but there's two things I want to touch upon. You've been very busy. You actually have your own podcast, your own YouTube. I'm curious, so what can we see coming out of, I was listening, you have one episode on there. When's the next episode coming out for the future of SEO podcast? I thought it was really interesting.
So we're going through a round of editing. I have 4 recorded. We're just working on, I have the producer going through and editing them because I actually don't have time to do it myself. So I have put a producer on it. And I have coming up is the technical global SEO director from Groupon will be on, and we'll probably be publishing that. So that's coming out we're going to be doing that in a week and publishing it in about 3 weeks. And I would like to have John Mueller on actually, and I'd love to talk about his perspective on link building. I think, nice. Which I do disagree with, very heavily. And I'd love to have Rand Fishkin on because Rand is probably one of the only people that speaks out against Google's bullying. Google shut down SEM Russia's distributor network with one tweet. That's bullying. And I'd love John Mueller to come on and talk about how he feels, his perspective on link building, what his perspective is on link building in general, and whether or not it's actually valid.
Yeah, no,
more to come. I hope I can get him on, but we'll see.
Yeah, that would be nice. It'll be nice to even have this nice split screen chat and going back and forth on something like that and battling right there with on your ideas and And then with the YouTube, I know you had launched a new video series going on with your YouTube. Is that more for just pure link? Should we expect more other content? What other type of content should we see on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so that's just a pure link YouTube. That's for that specific brand. My podcast is more personal to me, meaning I love the SEO industry. I want to see it grow. There's a lot of misconceptions in the industry, and we need to work together to overcome them. So the blog, my podcast is more about that. Now the YouTube is more about helpful tips, right? So it's anything distribution, content distribution, and link building. It's off page. It's all off page. Talking about EAT, one of the bigger topics we did just finish up an ebook about EAT and link building. Expertise, authority, and trust. Everyone talks about it for on page and for your content production. Nobody's talking about it from a link building perspective. So we will be publishing some more on that, and then we've also have I think we have about 30 videos in the queue right now that are about either e-commerce or finding unlinked brand mentions. And also we've gone through and we've produced a series about different ways you can use Ahrefs. Ahrefs is probably one of my favorite tools for metrics and finding links and auditing link profiles. So I also will be talking a lot more about how to leverage Ahrefs better from a link building perspective.
Nice. Yeah. EAT it's been talked about so much. I actually had some EAT expert last week, Lily Ray, she was on talking about EAT. And you're right. It's all about on page, but there's other places you can take that framework, the EAT framework, and apply it to anything. I do to I'm even optimizing my YouTube videos, and you're doing it with links. I think it provides a nice solid framework just to have quality, right? Just whether it's link building and just optimizing your videos. So I'm coming close to the end here, but there's one thing I always ask you're talking about helping the community, helping build the SEO industry. I'm here trying to get more people into SEO, whether they're just digital marketers in-house, whether they're just someone just starting to get into SEO. I have a wide variety of in my audience of what levels of SEO they are. And what is one tip that you can give for someone that wants to break into the SEO industry or learn more about it, or become even become maybe an expert if they're already in it? What's that one tip?
So there's 4 key areas of SEO: technical, content, analytics, and link building. Any good SEO program needs to have those, except if you're a major publisher, which link building is probably not your key priority. But and so I think right now the way the SEO industry is working is it's really been popularized, the technical component of it. Technical SEO is a really hot topic right now. There's a lot of people talking about it. And then the content side as well. So a lot of it on the content production side, I think is also popular. The SEO analytics and analysis side is one of the most important components, probably one of the least understood and less focused on. So I say, if you want to be a good SEO, you need a solid foundation and analysis, right? So being able to, if you do believe you can do this, reverse engineer Google's algorithm, analyze the ranking, analyze link profiles, compare the content, top ranking content to other types of content, how you leverage metrics and content analysis in order to improve it. So I think analysis is really probably the cornerstone. You need to be good at analyzing in those three areas: technical, content, and link building.
Love it, love it. Thank you for that. Okay, let's see here. I want to go ahead and how can someone get a hold of you? How can they find you? Where do you hang out? And let the audience know, please.
So for link building, you can contact. You can actually go to purelink.com, PURELINQ.com. You can find me on Twitter @_Kevin Rowe, KEVINROWE. And you can even email me if you're interested in link building. I do still handle a lot of the work on the PureLink side, but our team will do it. It handles a lot of the programs and the new business. But they can also email me at KROWE@purelink.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin, for coming by. It was a pleasure having you on here. I want to please stay on while I kind of sign off here. Just go ahead and so I can talk to you right after. Let me go ahead and go here. All right, guys. So there you have it. This week's episode. If you liked, if you smiled, if you laughed, if you enjoyed the content, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And I want to go ahead and turn back the clock here. We are talking about link building. You know, I love ending on musical notes. So let's check this out. So this was, I'm about to play a video for you guys that was published maybe like 10 years ago. And it's on link building. And hope you enjoy it.
You create a new site and it's content heavy with the right amount of pictures, so you think you ready, so you launch it, trying to put money in the bank, but when you search and try to find yourself, you can't, so you think until your mind goes blank. Got titles and hitters, but no page rank. Sooner or later, it'll show up our weight. So in the meantime, make sure my code validate. And it do. Now what I'm supposed to do? Add meta information in alt tags too. And I still don't get to listen. Something must be missing. Brad Chuck recommended doing link building. So you start hunting down sites like a predator, doing backlinks on all your competitors. Whoever linking to them need to link to me. Is it free? Do we swap or do I pay a fee? Or take it from us before you take that step? Some things about the site that you might want to check. Did they use a link farm or some dirty tactics? Could have a bad effect on your site that's drastic. Could have done some link baiting. Look at what they created compared to yours. Is it even related? Take the time, go inspect and see. Take advantage of paid directory. If you follow all the steps with a little bit of patience, get links from relevant sites that are favorite. Update your content on a regular basis. I'm confident you'll make it to first page placement.